Welcome to another video. We're going to do some silversmithing, maybe some cabbing, but we're going to try something different here. We're going to do some casting. Now I ordered some, I don't know if you want to forms, blanks, what you want to call them, but I've been casting various sizes in that one right there, and I ordered 3 different sizes of this style. You couldn't see from the picture how thin it was, and that is thin enough it would be extremely difficult to cast. So I've taken a number 7 here. I don't want to change the size on the inside. I wrapped it a couple wraps in electrical tape to make it slightly thinner or thicker to try and give me a chance of getting it to pour into the form. I'm going to try it at this thickness. I might have to add a little bit more. I'm not sure that I'll get a clean pour with a form that thin. I wouldn't mind it being a little bit thicker, but that's what we're going to try and do. So let me get set up here and you can come along and we'll see what we can make out of this. I have nothing in mind. My favorite thing to do, start with almost nothing in mind and see where it takes us. Learn, find something new to do along the way, and that's what we're going to do today. So I have the first half of my casting form here already ready. Try and get that. I wrapped it in electrical tape and then trimmed it with a razor knife around the edge. We're going to try and push it into here halfway. This is a big old thick form, trying to get roughly half on each side. And we're going to make sure we have a nice fit on the inside. Then we're going to take our cornstarch here. And just give it a little coating of cornstarch because we don't want the top layer to stick to the bottom layer of clay. We don't want it to stick to our ring too much. So do that. We will lock our other half, our female half of the form down. We'll get it kind of started here by pressing it around the edges. This is clay, sand, I don't know what you want to call it. It's kind of a mixture between the two. Okay, that should be good. We should be able to clean that off. We have our top and our bottom. Get ourselves a place to work here. Carefully separate the two by pulling them directly apart from each other. I think that's thick enough. It could pour. Then we'll do the work here. We want to create our funnel. We want to create our air vents. All of them in this male side. So we'll just kind of start them out here. We want to give that vapor some place to go so it won't stop. You don't want to vapor lock your silver as it's coming in, or whatever metal you happen to be pouring. This would be the same if you were trying to cast gold or aluminum or whatever. We're casting silver. And it is critical that you got to make sure that these things link and they don't get pressed in half when you are kind of scrunched. When you put the two halves together, sometimes they'll pinch together. You got to make sure you still have it. It doesn't take much, but it does take definitely, you have to have an open canal, or that it will just simply bind up your silver at the top of the form and not make it out. I'm going to make at least one of these fairly deep because this is such a deep form. So this one at the very bottom, kind of made it a little bit exaggerated. Okay, now I'm going to, this is kind of a balance between how much do I want to clean up and how bad do I want it to pour the first time. It really is, because if you get, some people can get it to pour with just a round sprue. I've never been that lucky. It's not gonna, it doesn't pour for me if I don't have a fairly broad raceway for it to travel through. So I want to make sure there's no loose clay in this that will fall into our form and mess it up. And then I can take this half out. I'm going to make sure that none of that'll all be cleaned up later. I'm also going to make sure now that this is out that I have, looks like I have pretty good airways everywhere. I just don't want, that one right there would have been blocked. This one right here. And there's just no point in having that little teeny lip right there, because it's always the possibility it's the one little piece that doesn't cast. So sometimes even when you get it to pour all the way to the bottom, the top doesn't come out good. Okay, so I'm happy with that on that side. We will then take and flip it the other way, so we get it in the other side the way it was, and do the same thing here. Create a little funnel. We don't have to do the airways on both sides. Kind of just rolling that little brush there to give me a nice clean path for the silver to make it in there. Got a little bit of a mess here on this edge. I'm going to tamp that in. I'm going to try and clean that up a little bit better right along there by using something that'll get me in there a little bit tighter, like this one. So now when we pull that one out, okay, looks like we have a clean form. We can now put the two together carefully. Just like that. We're ready to melt some silver. There's our scrap silver. And put a little pinch of borax in there just to help clean it up, because it is kind of scrap pieces from various things that didn't work out. And I'm not going to make you watch this whole process right here, because it's just like this for 4 to 5 minutes. I'll bring you back at intervals so you can kind of see the process though. It's a little bit rewarding to sit there and watch it turn into the puddle. I'm using matte gas instead of propane. Pause it again. Yeah, I would say I probably paused here for a minute. It's about a minute in. This is about 2 minutes in. This isn't more exciting than watching paint dry, then I'm sorry, but I kind of like it. About 3 minutes in, we're getting close. I'm going to change the camera now so you can actually see when I pour. Okay, I'll bring you back for the duration now. I know it looks like it's liquid now, and I know from experience that if I pour it right now, it ain't going all the way to the bottom. It's just not as hot as it needs to be. So we're going to give it another 30 seconds, maybe even a minute. It should look like a mirror. be very liquid, which they kind of are. But I've learned that 30 extra seconds here can save you having to redo the whole thing again. You want it as hot as you can get it. And this matte gas doesn't get quite as hot as an oxyacetylene torch. You gotta get it all you can out of it. Start getting ready here. I'm gonna start warming up the pour spout so it doesn't cool down my metal at all as it gets close. I'm also putting a little bit of heat down the form so that it's not ice cold when it hits it. I don't want anything to cool this down any faster than it has to. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, I scattered that pretty much all over the place, but the bulk of it went where it should have went. Let's see. And enough of it went down that we at least have, I mean, sometimes it's obvious if it all sits right there on the, in the pour spout, you know, you didn't go in there far enough, but that one has enough that went in that we have a chance. I don't know if it's a good pour or not yet, but we can now check. All right, let's give it a chance, or give it a look-see. Let me make sure I get you where you can see. I got a pretty good chunk of silver right there on the threads of my well, there's quite a bit of silver there. I don't know if that's from previous pours or if that pour. If that's from this pour, then we had less that went down the tube than I thought. Pick up that extra silver. All right, well, here's the moment of truth. Hey, I think we might have got it. It looks like it didn't get a perfect, let me pull it out and I'll show it to you real quick. It's not going to be perfect up here, and we'll probably narrow the width a little bit because that just tends to be that way. The top doesn't pour quite as good, the very top up here. And it's okay, this ring is plenty wide enough that if I had to come in a millimeter on the width, a little bit on both sides, even it up, I still got plenty here, but I think we possibly have a good pour there. So let me get it out of the clay and then I'll show it to you. And there's our cast. Obviously I got a good amount of cleanup here to get that cut off there, but I mean, I still wouldn't mind. I think I have another one of these in a size 13 that I'll pour for myself maybe later. And I think I would actually do another wrap of electrical tape on it for a little bit more thickness. But this one will be fine. This is a woman's size ring, size 7. So we'll begin the process of cleaning that up, and we'll see what we can do with it. All right, we're going to start cleaning this up. We're going to do it with, where's my side dikes? Just had them. Blue handle, oh, here they are, over here. Sorry. We're going to clip off what we can clip off, file off what we can't clip, or cut off what we can't clip off, and then file off the rest. Of course, we want to save. Oh, I got everything scattered around here so much you can't find anything. Of course, we want to save all of our scrap for the next pour. We'll probably do another one of these in a larger men's size. Let me show you, I'll show you, I won't make you watch the whole thing, but I'll show you how I get ready to cut that sprue off. I wish I could get it to pour without having to have a giant chunk of silver to cut off with there and clean up, but that's the only way I can seem to get it to pour decent. And that'll be a, so size 7 is right there. It'll need some cleaning up to make a size 7. You can see there's a pretty good little ring inside there stopping it from going up the ring sizing mandrel. We'll make sure it ends up at a 7. So this is going to be super loud, and I don't want to deafen you with it. Basically, I'm just using a Dremel with a cutoff wheel, little cutoff wheel. I'll cut it right in there, I'll cut it right in there, then bend it back and forth till it breaks off, and then start cleaning it up. You don't need to see that to envision it, right? It's loud, it's noisy, it gets hot, burns my fingers. So the bulk of it comes off with the grinder. A lot of the rest of it just comes off just a little bit of the time with the file. So I'm going to take it down to where that little irregularity on the sides, it'll narrower, and I could actually just make that the bottom and kind of taper it right there in that spot to make it more comfortable. I could choose to do that. Let's do that to start with. I can always take it off the rest of the way, the rest of it. So once again, I'm just trying to show you the steps. I'm not going to make you sit here and watch me sand on this for 20 minutes. But once I got it all cleaned up, I will bring it back. Basically, I'm just going to do this kind of a deal. Clean it up. And then I'll use a little bit finer file, and then I'll use a little bit, I'll use a polishing wheel, a little bit finer grit. We're ready to just take it over to the polishing, and then we'll figure out how we're going to mount something to this, or what we're going to mount to it. I haven't thought that far ahead now, but that's now becomes the issue, is do I need a flat spot on this to mount a plate to it. So that will make this the bottom of our ring. And I'll probably go ahead and make a mark on it so I can make sure that the bottom is the low point on both sides. Just to make it a little bit more comfortable to wear once it's on the finger. And I'll bring it back at that point. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking for that ring. We want a marquee cut, a small marquee cut, maybe 3/4 of an inch to an inch. I've got a blue choice here. And so here's the thing, when you go after something with something specific in mind, you end up losing more of the stone than if you just cut the stone and then do something later. This one right here is just possibly, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut this with this is the bottom and this is the top and try for a marquee cut right there. Our backup stone is this one right here that has some nice green. I'm really digging the greens lately, but we'll see if the blue can't hold its own. I'm going to cut 3 marquees out of these 3 right here. I'll show you how we get started. I don't want this to take up too much of the video, but let's see on this one. On this one, we really kind of we're hogging some material off here to see what we can get for a marquee. what we're going to get on this one. Okay, now it's far enough to dop it up and see what we can get. This one, look at the color on that one. We're going to establish a bottom for it. We're going to cut it where we need to cut it to end up with the marquee, I hope. Okay, just going to get them where I can dop them up and work them from there. This one's going to be smaller than I was hoping. But the color on it is just crazy nice. Okay, so I'm going to dop that one up. It's close enough that we can kind of see what we're going to get. Number 2, my one I have the highest hopes for, or that have at least I would most like to pull it off with, is this one right here. Because the color on this is just nuts. Trying to maximize the size here. So this is the top of our stone. This is kind of a unusual way of making this cut, but look at the color we're getting into there. It's going to be very narrow, but I'm thinking it's the leading candidate right now. I think we're ready to drop this one up. We really need to end up with something usable out of this one. It's a stunning stone. Might change our mind and actually cut it from this direction. I think we'll end up with a larger stone with that as the bottom. Okay, I'll be right back as soon as I dop these up. That one's a winner right there. I don't know how it's going to come out, but as of right now, we have our winner. Alright, let me show you where we're at. I've been working on it a little bit. All three of them are kind of cutting, so each one of them has their own little complications. That one's got a low spot that's probably going to have to stay. Beautiful blue. This one right here. It's got a low spot there. This one's about, these two are about the right size. This one's a little bit bigger than we need to take, and we probably need to lose some of that. This is still my favorite in color, but I'm gonna keep working on these, and I'll bring you back when we get ready to, when I get them shaped and we figure out which one we're gonna put actually set in that ring. Okay, I'm bringing you back because I'm really leaning toward this one. Let me get you some color on it. Look at that. I've cut it down in size slightly. I might go down just a little bit more so that we can kind of thicken it up. And I'm mainly taking it off of this side here that has the matrix in it. I don't mind a little bit, but I don't want a lot of matrix left in it. This one might need to be backed to work, but dadgum, how do you not love that color? Two-tone green, PolyChrome green. Okay, I'm thinking that's what we're going to go with, so I won't show you the rest of them to keep the video short, but I will show you how those stones turn out. Alright, so here's our 3 stones. Crazy blue on this one, but I don't like the little pit right there. I could cut that into a teardrop and it'd probably be a more appropriate shape that I can get rid of that. I'm looking for a marquee, so I kept it in there for this one. These two, it really just comes down. This one's the better stone. It's a little bit big, probably for the ring. This one doesn't quite, I mean, it's a beautiful green. It just doesn't have the polychrome that this one does, plus the little matrix to give it some, so I'm leaning toward this one. We're gonna go through this one on top of that ring and see how it's going to look. But I wanted to show you in here where the light's decent, because the light's terrible in that room. Okay, my question was simply, is that stone too big for the ring? I would say no. In fact, I think it actually could have been even bigger with that big broad band. So that's the one we're going to set here. I'm trying to decide if I want to do some file work down these sides, and I'm kind of leaning toward it. Some saw work to give it some texture. Or maybe we just don't. Maybe I do that later on another one and not complicate this first one. But okay, so we need to set this in a bezel now. We'll set these two aside for now because, and again, this is Hardy Pit, Kingman, Blue Basin Kingman. The other one's Hardy Pit as well. All right, we're going to solder our bezel. If you can see by that little patch of solder on the one side, this is the second attempt. It just didn't flow over to the gap. I mean, it didn't flow into the seam. And rather than ruin the bezel, I decided to just repickle it and give it another try. I think we got it that time. There'll be a little bit of cleanup from that flux, or that solder, but that'll work. All right, we're getting ready to solder this to the shank. I'm going to sweat solder it, so I'm going to melt some solder here on the top where I want it to set. And all I want this solder to do is just kind of puddle up for me. About there. Right there. That's all we need. Now we'll set it up upside down on the bezel, which is right here. We've got it all roughed in. I might actually polish a little bit more. Went ahead and stamped it that way. I don't know if that was right or not, but that's what I did on this one. I'm going to clean this one up so it's a nice clean solder. All right, see if we can get the ring shank to solder to the bezel. You might want a little bit more heat. I don't like where that solder's sitting. I really don't want it to flow that far out, so. There we go. The solder underneath flowed. I saw it rock down. The solder on the sides flowed. I can see solder underneath the whole thing. So there is a ring. Looks like it's on there straight. Pickle it. I'm ready to set a stone in there. Alright, so I'm going to do a little bit more polishing on this. The band is pretty close. The bezel hasn't been polished yet. I kind of wish that I had done some file work on the shank, but I just kind of wanted to get this design down, not throw in too many new things at once. I'm going to try and get this as close to polished before I set the stone. That way I don't take a chance on overheating the stone. Alright, you get the idea again? Always got to throw it at least once. Try to get it out of the system before you have a stone in it. Okay, you get the idea. All right, here we have our finished ring. Look at the cool polychrome color we have in that turquoise. My hands are so dirty that it's hard to get it polished and show it to you clean. But that's as cool as they come in the greens. Let me pop it out here and show it to you. It ended up being just maybe a smidgen under a 7, size 7. Like 6 7/8 if there's just the 7 mark slides to about here and not quite to half. So it's just a hair under a 7. So something that's a little bit under a 7 will be able to wear it. Anyway, thanks for coming along. Hope you guys enjoy that one. That's a fun project. I love starting with no real idea where we're going. Just see where it goes from there.